Washington is facing mounting questions over the true state of its military readiness. A combination of ongoing global conflicts, high missile usage in Iran, and strained production lines are raising concerns over a possible depletion of its missile stockpiles. According to a report by The Atlantic, American Vice President JD Vance has privately expressed concerns over the state of American munitions reserves and has repeatedly questioned the Pentagon's assessment of the ongoing war in Iran. Reports claim that Vance has even queried whether the information being provided to President Trump about the reality on the ground is reaching him. Now, the central concern being raised is not just about current operations, but also about long-term global commitments. If U.S. stockpiles continue to decline, America would be forced to prioritize defense needs in critical regions such as Taiwan against China, South Korea against the North, and Europe against Russia. Meanwhile, senior defense officials, including the Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth and the General Dan Kane, who's the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, have publicly asserted that U.S. stockpiles remain robust and capable. However, multiple reports paint a more pressured picture. Let's tell you about it. A major analysis by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, or the CSIS, paints a striking picture of the scale of the expenditure. Since the war began in late February, the U.S. has used up at least half of its THAAD missiles, nearly half of its Patriot air defense systems, and around 45% of its precision strike missiles. The numbers are just as significant across other systems. Around 30% of Tomahawk missiles have been deployed, along with substantial use of joint air-to-surface standoff missiles, and roughly 20% of SM-3 and SM-6 interceptors. Internal political tensions are also surfacing against this backdrop. Remember, reports suggest that differences have emerged within the American leadership as well over how the war in Iran is being described, how much stockpile data is accurate, and whether the strategy being pursued is sustainable for the future. Now, the Iran war is beginning to create political ripple effects back home in Washington as well for Donald Trump. Trump is now grappling with a war narrative that is beyond his control, as his polling numbers drop even lower, with Americans' approval for this war plunging. He has no choice apart from finding a scapegoat. And nobody looks more suitable than Pete Hegseth. Signs of this shift were visible as early as the 4th of March, when Trump threw a live grenade at Hegseth when he was asked about the U.S. war objectives in Iran. Trump publicly pointed to Pete Hegseth's role in pushing for aggressive action in West Asia. Listen in.
They've been poisoning the American people, and Joe Biden tried to approach it with kid gloves.
I think you were the first one to speak up, and you said, let's do it, because you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Now, the Pentagon is also exploring structural fixes for its long-term production bottlenecks. Reports say that the U.S. Defense Department is considering a whopping $1.85 billion feasibility study to explore outsourcing or co-production of warship designs with allies such as South Korea and Japan. The study, which is part of the 2027 budget plan, would assess whether advanced foreign designs like Japan's Mogami class and South Korea's Daewoo class frigates could help supplement overstretched shipbuilding capacity of Washington. If approved, this would mark the first time since World War II that the U.S. may depend on foreign designs for major surface warships. The move comes as America reportedly continues to struggle with labor shortage and cost overruns in its domestic shipbuilding industry. The initiative also aims to bridge a widening shipbuilding capacity gap with China, which is reportedly producing 6 to 10 destroyers per year, which is 4 to 6 times the rate of the United States. Together, these developments highlight a major pressure point for Washington, where military overstretch, industrial limitation, and political accountability are all converging at the same time. Moving on, the United Arab Emirates has announced its exit from OPEC and the broader OPEC Plus alliance. This development is hugely significant for crude oil markets as it marks a complete shift in global energy politics. This move will be effective from the 1st of May, and remember, it comes amid heightened volatility in global crude markets. The UAE's departure from the Oil Producers Alliance has added a layer of uncertainty and weakened the ability of the producer alliances to coordinate supply and prices. Before its exit, the UAE was the third largest producer within OPEC, pumping around 3.4 million barrels per day and accounting for roughly 10% of the group's output. Its departure further erodes OPEC Plus cohesion, which has already been strained by a sharp drop in production linked to the ongoing conflict. In the near term, the move is expected to keep price volatility elevated as markets react to both geopolitical risks and shifting supply dynamics. However, over the longer term, the UAE's strategy could exert downward pressure on prices. Freed from production quotas, Abu Dhabi plans to ramp up capacity to 5 million barrels per day by 2027, potentially adding significant new supply to global markets. The exit also reflects a deeper geopolitical and economic recalibration. The fragmentation over regional security responses and a growing emphasis on national economic priorities have pushed the UAE to adopt a more independent energy policy. The move also signals a potential reshaping of global oil markets with implications for pricing, supply coordination, and the future relevance of traditional producer alliances. UAE's move comes as Gulf leadership is in Saudi capital Jeddah for an exceptional meeting of the Gulf Cooperation Council to discuss the response to the Iranian strikes. This is the first in-person meeting of the GCC countries since the war against Iran 2 months back. The war in Lebanon is spreading further. Israel has now taken its military campaign into the eastern Lebanon as a fragile ceasefire struggles to hold. Even as the battlefield expands, a new threat is now emerging, one that is exposing serious vulnerabilities in the Israeli Defense Forces. Israeli forces have launched fresh strikes in Lebanon's eastern Bekaa Valley, marking the first attack on this region since the U.S.-brokered ceasefire came into effect on the 16th of April. Both sides continue to exchange fire, and the situation along the Israel-Lebanon border remains volatile and increasingly unpredictable. Visuals from South Lebanon show thick plumes of smoke rising after fresh Israeli strikes. These were captured from the Israeli side of the border. The visuals underscore just how active this conflict still remains. Lebanese officials report that at least 4 people have been killed in the latest round of the Israeli attacks. Now, the Israeli army has also released a footage claiming to show its troops targeting Hezbollah infrastructure in southern Lebanon. Israeli tanks and military vehicles are now heavily deployed along the border, signaling preparations for a prolonged conflict. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claims that Hezbollah has been significantly weakened, reduced to just 10% of its original missile capacity. Netanyahu has also said that the operation is far from over, warning that the threat still persists. And in his words, work is not done in Lebanon. That's what he said. Now, on both sides of the border, civilians are losing faith in diplomatic efforts. Many believe that the ceasefire is little more than a temporary pause in a much larger war.
I feel like we were told that this time it would be until the end, that they would eliminate Hezbollah and give us security in the north, but I don't see that happening.
When will relief come so we can get out of this life sentence? No one knows. It's like a door is locked on us, and we can't get out, we can't talk, we can't do anything.
A new dimension is emerging in this conflict as well, Hezbollah's use of first-person view drones. Now, these small but deadly devices are targeting Israeli tanks and soldiers with increasing precision. Some of these drones use fiber-optic guidance systems, reportedly making them nearly impossible to jam and leaving Israeli forces exposed. The IDF have reported dozens of injuries from drone attacks in recent weeks, and a recent strike marked the first fatal drone attack on Israeli troops. At the same time, the IDF has been facing increasing scrutiny as well, after global outrage ensued over 2 IDF soldiers vandalizing a Jesus statue in South Lebanon. The IDF chief has now condemned the allegations of the Israeli soldiers stealing personal property in Lebanon, also adding that a probe is underway. So as this war intensifies, the ceasefire appears to be on name only.